right. Hey everyone, welcome to the Cross-Chain Insider, a weekly roundup of all news traveling across chains. I'm Mark, a member of the BizDev team at LI.F I, and I am joined by my co-host Arjun, the Gigabrain Threador Researcher extraordinaire here at LI.F I. What is up, Arjun?
Hey, thanks for the flattering introduction, but I have to say you do everything that you just said about me, and then you do so much more, right? So I'm pretty sure if there's a giga brain out here, it's you and not me. But that's a topic of discussion that we can come to later, I guess.
Certainly. So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, which is everyone because this is going to be the first Cross-Chain Insider that was posted. The Cross-Chain Insider is a weekly news recap that Arjun posts as a newsletter on Medium, and it'll be delivered to your inbox every Monday. And now this podcast is basically going to go through all of the news that's aggregated into this newsletter, and we're just going to kind of talk about it a little bit. Because there's so much going on and there's so much to read that it can be kind of hard to comprehend in the 3 minutes that you skim. So that's why this podcast is here. And on that note, Arjun, can you give us the rundown, the recap, the roundup of all bridging news from the last 7 days?
Yeah, for sure. That's what we're here for, right? So let's get started with Connext and the next token. So Connext announced their token and contributor program at DevConnect on, of course, 4/20, one for the culture, basically. And the team says, as Connext is set to become a critical piece of public infrastructure for the decentralized web, we are convinced it must be owned and operated by its community. So to enable this vision, they've introduced the Next token, which is the Connext network token. So Next will be a utility and governance token, and it will basically power fair utilization of the network. Because as mentioned above, Connext has plans to run as a DAO as by the community. What's different about Next token is that it doesn't have anything to do with the security architecture of Connext. So like usually we see the token is used for giving economic incentives to network participants, to ensure the security of the network. For example, there's Rune in Thorchain. So if the validators have to stake Rune, and if there's some malicious activity, the Rune gets slashed and users are reimbursed using those slash tokens. But with Connext, there's no connection to the security of the network. So the purpose is not to provide security, but instead it is to maintain the operational fairness of the network. And how they do this is by connecting the token with the routers, which are the nodes of Connext. So routers have to stake Next to participate in the network, which makes it a utility token. And because the community is governing the treasury of Connext through a DAO, it is also a governance token. So this token will be airdropped to users and validators. And with the token announcement, they also announced their contributor program, which is basically to accelerate the Connext network's decentralization. So the community can get involved here and they can participate in Connext development, and they can also earn some Next tokens, which will be airdropped soon.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the contributor token drop, which essentially allows kind of creators, developers, or like really gung-ho community members to get a part of the initial drop, even if they don't have like the tokens to go around and like test out the protocol and stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm also just I always love a token that tries something a little bit different, and I think the next token is certainly it differentiates itself from other bridging tokens. So it's fun to see that.
Yeah, it's not just one that you can go and farm an airdrop, right? Like just go use the platform. That's a good way to do it, but it goes above that. Like it will reward the users, but it will also reward core contributors who helping Connext basically spread awareness about the ecosystem, spread awareness about the product. it's a good way to encourage, I would say, overall involvement in the community, and not just using the protocol. Which some people go and actually farm, right? Like they don't want to use the protocol, but there are rumors there will be a token, so they go and use it. And moving on to Synapse protocol on the airdrop kind of note. So there were rumors that Optimism will have an airdrop soon. So, and there was a lot of hype around Optimism. So they Synapse launched a new USDC pool last week, and this pool has LP rewards, and this is basically just to support bridging to Optimism. And yeah, so this is like one way Synapse is trying to make the most of the hype around Optimism's airdrop, and they basically enabling easy bridging to Optimism. And they basically had a big week, right? They also announced xAssets. So this is a way for projects to turn their native tokens on one chain into an asset available on multiple chains. So this is done through their canonical minting mechanism, through which projects can basically turn an asset that is deployed on a single chain into xAssets that are found on multiple chains. So how this works is fairly simple. Like it's basically based on the lock-in mint mechanism. So when a user bridges their token, the original token is locked in Synapse smart contract on the source chain, and through cross-chain messaging, new tokens are minted on the destination chain. So the user gets the newly minted token plus a gas airdrop, which I think is a very neat feature because a user doesn't have to worry about gas on the destination chain.
Is that gas airdrop paid up front, or is Synapse having that just paid out of their like treasury? Do you know?
I think it must be out of their treasury, right? Because how else will it be paid, right? It can't be paid upfront. So basically, whenever a user uses Synapse to bridge, I guess they take a cut from their fees and they facilitate that gas airdrop. But I'm not sure about that.
Nice. Would you consider this decentralized or centralized method of bridging? And I know that's a spectrum, so maybe you can kind of place it on a scale from 1 to 10.
So, I don't know. There's nothing about decentralization or centralization about the xAssets project, but you can kind of place Synapse in a spectrum in general. So it's like they have validators, and they are. Yeah, I think there's a blog post coming out soon, and you can see where Synapse is placed. But there's nothing decentralized or centralized about this particular announcement, because it's like they're doing cross-chain messaging, and yeah, just wait for the blog post, I would say.
I guess I should have framed it as trusted or trustless, but we'll leave that for the blog post for the people, which should be coming out in the next week or so. Okay, we'll move on. Yeah,
let's move on to Multichain, who released their MPC 2.0. And this is basically an upgrade to their multi-party computation network, which is basically all their nodes, or you can say validators of the multi-chain network. So what MPC 2.0 does is it increases the speed and offers enhanced security to the network. And with this, the team's aim is to further enhance the network's decentralization, which is always good to see, because progressive decentralization is all we need. And to wrap things up, let's go to Tethys Finance, who they launched their Tethys bridge. Tethys is a DEX and lending protocol on Metis, and this bridge basically connects 9 different chains. So what they've done is very interesting, right? They've not gone out and created their own bridge. They've basically aggregated the 7 different bridges that are currently operating on the Metis network. So it's interesting to see that they've decided to aggregate the existing bridges rather than creating a new bridge which has its own complications or requirements. I would say, like, you have to attract liquidity, you have to compete with other bridges, but they've just aggregated all the bridges into one UI. And in a similar news, Optimism also introduced a new bridge UI that also aggregates all the third-party bridges such as Hop, Synapse, Cbridge, and Connext. So a big chain like Optimism, again, going down the aggregation route for bridges, I don't know about you, but this kind of validates like LI.FI's business case, because there are so many different flavors of bridges out there. And for an application, but even a chain, as you see, it just makes sense to have access to all of them rather than just one of them, right? And they could have just used LI.FI, but they've gone down the creating or building your own bridge route, which is resource extensive. It takes time, it takes expertise, and of course it will take more work for maintenance, right? And that's basically all we do, like at LI.FI. That's what we specialize in. What do you think about them aggregating bridges and not creating their own one? Optimism had their own bridge, by the way, like the native bridge.
Yeah, I love the idea to go aggregate. I will say if there's anyone out there helping develop another layer 1 chain or layer 2 chain, and you're thinking about building out your own aggregator, maybe just check out LI.FI's documentation, because you know, we already have a bunch of bridges aggregated. So I'll say that. Outside of that, I think that we're going to be seeing a lot more of aggregation, just because the whole issue with bridges is, well, it's really twofold. Like the major issues with bridges is, one is the security. Is we're in a really cutting edge field, and we've seen a lot of bridge hacks, and you do not want to have a single point of failure with a bridge. So let's say you have a DeFi protocol and you're only relying on a bridge, like, I don't want to pick on Wormhole, but we'll pick on Wormhole because they were exploited at one point, right? You only have Wormhole. Wormhole goes down. That means your entire bridge functionality is shut down until Wormhole can get back online. That's a big issue. If you just used an aggregator, you could maybe have 5 different bridge options, so that if Wormhole goes down, you have 4 other routes that customers can bridge tokens through. The second thing is that all of these bridges really kind of fragment liquidity, because each has their own mechanisms for moving tokens across chains. And the way that they do this makes it hard for those bridges to move tokens through other bridges, which means liquidity is just very, very hard to find, which means it's hard to sometimes find enough liquidity to actually transfer tokens from from chain A to chain B, which means you should have multiple bridge options. So aggregation to me makes total sense, but I'm biased because I work at the best bridge aggregator.
I mean, this is a very interesting topic, right? Especially right now, because Osmosis is also conducting their voting, right? Which we'll cover later, of course. But again, there's the whole question, like, do we choose one bridge as the go-to bridge, or do we just let them all compete and find a winner in that in the natural or like organic way? So we'll cover this later, but I think that's very, very interesting.
Yeah, and another thing is just, I love competition when it comes to the aggregation aspect of this technology, right? If you have just one huge bridging protocol, they're not going to be incentivized to cut prices. And so when you have multiple bridging solutions, the end user is going to be benefiting from that, because you're going to have to drive prices down to incentivize users to actually use it.
I mean, yeah. So anything, let's say the Synapse example, right? So they're doing a gas airdrop, and whenever a user now has to bridge, they'll just be like, I'll just use Synapse. Like, why not? They're giving me gas incentive as well. And the other bridges now have to offer this, because otherwise the user is just motivated more to, use Synapse. Maybe like there's obviously a more nuanced discussion there, like, is the security the same, or is the speed the same? But on just like a higher level, for a user who doesn't like know too much about bridges, they'll just see that, okay, it saves me money, so I'll just use Synapse, and they're a good bridge, right? They're a well-known bridge. So yeah, more competition is always welcome, in my opinion. Like it'll help us grow.
For sure. Okay, so we'll move on. That was sort of the bridging updates section of the Cross-Chain Insider. From here, we'll move on to more of just the multi-chain roundup, essentially, that kind of happened in the last 7 days. So our first anyways, the biggest story in the multi-chain world this week is that Miso has now been deployed on all major chains. So Miso is SushiSwap's token launchpad, where essentially anyone can go in and launch a token. Like it's kind of like an initial coin offering. Essentially, you can do different types of auctions like batch options or Dutch auctions through Miso. It is now on 9 chains, which is pretty incredible that SushiSwap is all across the metaverse. And I feel like this has only been the case for like, they've been on, I think they've done 9 chains in less than 12 months, which is like kind of insane. I look back, I tried to find their earlier announcements. That's incredible growth.
Yeah, I mean, this is a trend for sushi, right? Like we've seen this before. Almost all their products are multi-chain now, and I think earlier this month they had the Trident announcement, which was launched on multiple chains, and now they have Miso. So I would say that there are no surprises that a new sushi swap product is launched, and it's of course on multiple chains. Like it's kind of that thing, right?
Yeah, which is kind of incredible for someone that was like, that's like an Ethereum OG, right? You think of like the biggest DeFi protocols on Ethereum, it's like Aave, it's Uniswap, it's Compound, and then you kind of think SushiSwap. But now SushiSwap, I would not consider Ethereum native at all. I feel like they're everywhere.
Yeah,
And just to clarify,
I just wish this moves on to the token as well someday.
seriously though. And Miso, by the way, is now on Polygon, Arbitrum, Avalanche, and Ethereum mainnet with this latest announcement. So they already had 5 Miso launches. And they just added 4 more. The next piece of news is that Scroll Tech, a zero knowledge rollup, an EVM compatible chain, kind of announced their project this week. And it's kind of a massive project to be moving out of, as you described, stealth mode in the Cross-Chain Insider. The team has 20 developers. They've raised $30 million. And from what I can tell, is they're building a zero knowledge rollup on a layer 2 that's completely EVM compatible, meaning that any developers working on Ethereum mainnet can move over to Scroll, and all the code just works exactly how it was working on mainnet, except that you now get a layer 2's throughput and decreased gas fees, which is always a benefit.
Yeah. And what was interesting here, the team described themselves as a team of researchers and hackers, which is, I mean, they're calling themselves hackers. So it's like, that cracked me up basically.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that their Twitter thread was not written by like a marketing guy. It was definitely written by a developer that had to put on his marketing hat and go like make sure the public can understand what they're building, which is always bullish for when a project is announcing. You want the developers to have to be writing, because that means the team is sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. Next piece of news is that PerpProtocol had a proposal for updating their tokenomics get passed. And from what I can tell is the new proposal will see an initiative for V tokens, which is a vote escrow token to be used, which if you're in the DeFi space, that's pretty big news. And they'll also have like an update to their governance process and their fee distribution. And we're big fans of Perpetual Protocol on this podcast because they have integrated Li.Fi into their system. So we love to see someone using our product be such an innovator. And I think the tokenomics proposal looks good. Do you have anything to add there?
I mean, we're not just like fans of Perp because they've integrated our product, but we have a lot of people in the team who are actually using their product even without the integration. So it's kind of great to see that a product that we've been using personally has gone out and integrated Li.Fi, and they've done this without any help from our team or like any guidance from our team. We just one day they came and they were like, okay, we integrated your widget. Can we have some cross marketing basically? So that's great that the docs are working and people can understand how to integrate Li.Fi, on their own, which is great.
Yep. And I think that we are going to be seeing a lot more tokenomics proposals in the next probably 6 to 12 months. I think kind of Yearn Finance kicked this off maybe 6 months ago when they proposed a tweak to their tokenomics. We've seen it on a couple different older tokens that kind of needed tweak to fit into the new norm. So Perpetual Protocol is the latest to do so. I'll be interested to see like if a token like Next that we talked about earlier, at some point, in the next 3 years, let's say, tweaks it to where the token can have more utility. And I can't wait to see that sort of governance proposal be put forward, because
I think that's bound to happen, because 2 years before, when all these projects like T5 1.0 projects they launched, we didn't know enough about tokenomics, right? Like how to incentivize everyone. Like we knew, of course, that's why we created them. But now there's like so much more knowledge that you can actually tweak it to provide more value. And I think because we're so early in everything about this space, 3 years down the line, we'll be like, oh, this was so obvious. Like, why didn't we add this to the tokenomics? So, and I think that's the best way to go about it as well. Like, you learn from everyone in this space. If there's something that's working for a lot of people, it can work for you as well. So, there's no harm in not copying, but taking inspiration from others' work and implementing it to your project. So, I definitely see 2 years or 3 years down the line, even there will be a next token proposal upgrade, and it's a DAO already. So people will vote and they will decide.
Yeah, I'm deep into the tokenomics weeds these days. I'm seeing a lot of iterations on yield farming techniques, and I can't wait to see where this is all is going to go. I love the idea of bootstrapping a network. But anyways, we'll move on to the next topic here, which is that Pegasus Finance is now live on Optimism. And so Pegasus Finance is a speculation focused interest rate protocol. And it's kind of a wild protocol where you can literally, like, it's derivatives on yield essentially. And I haven't used it personally, but you love to see new Optimism based projects launching. And do you have anything to add on Pegasus, Arjun?
I mean, it's definitely a product for traders, right? Like for regular investors, like you won't even understand the product, because like speculation focused interest rate perpetual protocol. So there's definitely too much going on for like a beginner. But yeah, like that's the best thing about DeFi, that you can see all these products. And speaking of Optimism, and this isn't in the Cross-Chain Insider this week because this happened after it was published, but Synthetics also launched incentives for SUSD on Optimism. So is this a, I think this is this week's like trend, right? So much on Optimism, and Optimism is also kind of working around maybe a token, maybe not. So let's see.
Yeah, I'm not surprised after last week's rumors of an Optimism token that a DeFi OG like Synthetics would take advantage of that to incentivize usage. So I think that's very smart of Synthetics. I think we might see other protocols follow suit.
Yeah, they've already done that, by the way. Like so many projects have already tried to use the hype and the rumors around Optimism to, okay, bridge to Optimism. There's liquidity on Optimism. We provide incentives on Optimism. So yeah, everything about Optimism. And I think you mentioned this in one of your threads, right? Like an L2 token will kick off the L2 season. So it'll be interesting to see how the competitors of Optimism react, or do they have something else up their sleeves? So what will their strategy be? It's unknown, and it's very exciting. Like 3 months down the line, it'll be, we might have all L2 tokens. We still might not have anything.
I know. I can't believe it's April and we haven't really had a big L2 drop a token. That's pretty mind blowing when you thought about the narratives coming into the year.
I mean, I can't believe it's April already. It's the end of April. But
End of April.
That just shows how fast time moves in crypto. And yeah, that's another discussion, but let's move on.
All right. So Primitive, formerly known as Primitive Finance, launched on Ethereum mainnet. Primitive is a derivatives automated market maker, or a trading options AMM. And I'm a big fan of this rebrand. It went from primitive finance to just straight up primitive. And I like this because I think it shows that like what we're building isn't just like financial tools anymore. It's just that they're more like almost social products, and like there's way more than just like finance. And obviously this is a trading options AMM, so this is actually a financial tool. But I do like that we're moving away from everything calling itself just blank financial. So those
And
are my thoughts.
it's shorter and like crisper, right? And I think last week there was also Dune Analytics that rebranded to Dune. So it's like everyone knows what Dune Analytics does. So you don't need to have analytics in the name, right? So it's like everyone will know what primitive does. So you don't need to have primitive finance in the name. So it's kind of that, okay, do we really need to add something that explains more about our product? Or is it like the one name, the one domain is enough to explain everything that we want to, basically?
Yeah, and also LI.FI just rebranded, and we might have dropped a financial. Okay, so next we have Vesper Finance. Speaking of DeFi protocol with finance in the name, Vesper launched their yield aggregation tool set onto Avalanche. They were formerly only on Ethereum and Polygon. They're now on Avalanche. If anyone's looking for some pretty solid yields here, I checked earlier today and they're offering 155% on Avax deposits. So Vesper Finance, that's the update for the degenerates.
I don't remember seeing 155% return in a long time in crypto. Unless you've done like something really, really right. But most of the industry hasn't, right? Like we're still where we were last year. So, yeah.
I know. Even Near Protocol, they just launched their stablecoin and it's at 10%. I mean, we can't even get up into the teens. It's sad.
They said 20, right? But I don't know what happened between the rumor and the announcement.
Honestly, I'd rather it be at 10 than 20 just because that seems more sustainable. 20% is so high.
But imagine like they've basically tried to replicate what Anchor is doing on Terra, but Anchor is offering 20, right? And even after the reduction, it'll be 15, 16%. And it's been there for over a year, it's been working. So will it actually solve the purpose that it was invented in the first place for? Like, because they wanted to attract liquidity, right? If Anchor is offering 20% and a protocol that's similar to Anchor, works on the same mechanism, offers 10%, why will I choose the other one?
You offer valid points, but you could also I'm just waiting for Tron to launch their Tron DAO so I can make 30% on USDD.
Yeah, I think that's a good reason why, like, maybe I won't go for Tron even if it's offering 50%, but that's just a personal opinion. And yeah, so maybe there are some near maxis or like people who are actually using near very often that don't mind the 10%, right? And for them, bridging to Terra and is more work than actually earning 20%. Maybe they don't trust the protocol itself.
Man, we really got off topic there. We were talking about Vesper Finance in the multi-chain world. Now we're talking about degenerate yield.
I talked about
strategies.
I talked about bridging to Terra, right? So there's always a way to connect bridges.
Oh, the bridge is always there. Okay, last piece of multi-chain news is that Stader Finance, a liquid staking protocol, has launched on Fantom. I'm pretty sure that launched pretty recently. Like this, I mean, of course it launched this week, but it was like, was it in the last like 2 days or something like that?
Yeah,
I can't
so
remember.
I think this goes to show that everything that I've covered in the newsletter is in that order. Like everything that was written earlier happened earlier in the week, and towards the end, these are the stuff that's like most recent. So you can't tell me that I'm actually putting news based on my opinion, which is more important.
It's true. It's timeline based. But Stader is pretty sweet. Fantom, it had a little lull post Andre Cronje leaving, but I've kind of looked at their TVL recently, and it's kind of bumped back up a little bit, which is good to see. Excited about the liquid staking, Stader. So let's move on to the next section of the Cross-Chain Insider. This is probably Arjun's favorite section because he gets to show off his threador skills. Arjun, you threaded extensively this week about Cosmos, Ethereum, something. Arjun, can you give us the details on what's poppin' in the cross-chain world?
It's the Cosmos bridge off, right? So it's the OsmosisDAO is currently considering proposals and voting for Cosmos Ethereum bridge providers. So the chosen bridge provider will become the go-to canonical provider of Ethereum assets to the Osmosis DEX, which is pretty big, right? Because Osmosis is the most used DEX on Cosmos right now. So the logic behind this proposal is that different bridges, they offer a different wrapped version of the same asset, and this makes things confusing for the users and basically impacts the UX, right? So let's say there's USDC, and each bridge provider has their own wrapped version of it. So there will be Wormhole USDC, Nomad USDC, Axelar USDC, and for the user, this is very confusing because to them they only know USDC, but now they have a synthetic version of USDC on another chain, which is basically not the same. Like it's another project's own version of the original token. So this it gets very confusing for a regular user, and this also fragments liquidity, right? Because for the same asset, you have liquidity distributed across all these wrapped versions. So basically, to overcome this confusion and liquidity fragmentation, the OsmosisDAO, they've come up with a solution to choose a single canonical bridge provider per chain. So let's say from Ethereum to Cosmos, there will be one bridge provider whose canonical token will be used. So this bridge provider, the chosen one, will be the only one who can mint a canonical version of the chain's asset. And currently, there's an ongoing vote, and there are proposals from 4 bridges, who are Axelar, Gravity, Nomad, and Wormhole. And there is also a 5th proposal, which is for choosing no canonical bridge provider. So the selection criteria the DAO has kind of decided is basically UX, the cost, security is always important, and also there's the great emphasis put on the bridge team, like their experience, their credentials, and what they've done before, and what they had promised to the users and what they've delivered, right? So all this is very fascinating in my opinion, because there's like a bridge war currently taking place on Osmosis, like who will become the go-to bridge provider for them. But there are also concerns from the Osmosis community, and this particular section didn't make it to the thread, but it's basically, people are saying like what happens if the canonical bridge gets exploited and all the liquidity is drained, right? So and will Osmosis select a winner in terms of bridges and enable like that one bridge to dominate across all chains? So what people are saying, it's kind of early to pick a winner, because all these bridges, we're all in like early stages of development. So we don't really have enough practical evidence, I would say, to say that one bridge is battle tested and it has robust security, right? All these bridges on a theoretical level, they've all taken measures to kind of enhance security, provide the best architecture. But from a practical perspective purely, we're yet to truly, battle test them and see, can they withstand the test of time, sort of like, can they withstand the shifts in market, volatility, change in narratives, and everything that comes with time. So basically, another approach, or the 5th option that is being considered, is to not pick a winner at all and letting there be competition among bridges. So as we talked earlier, competition among bridges is very important, and this will lead to, like, I think, more innovation in this space. But the concern of Osmosis is also very relevant, right? Like if we have all these different wrapped versions, there will be bad UX, but at least if there's good competition, we can say that the bad UX is there for good reason, right? I'm actually not like sure where I stand with all this and what my final opinion is. Like I'm still in the process of forming an opinion, but yeah, it's definitely something that's been on my mind. So what about you? What do you think about the bridge wars on Osmosis?
I think all of these governance proposals are absolutely fascinating. I would be much more comfortable with these bridge wars if it was more of a, here is who OsmosisDAO is going to choose for the next 12 months, right? This is going to be the first canonical chain, right? And then we'll go from there. I don't necessarily like anything in the blockchain space, which is kind of like, this is what we're doing now, and it's going to be set into the future, because we're talking about, like immutable systems, right? And I don't like anything that's set in stone, because then it's very hard to change. And I don't necessarily think having one bridge is ever going to be the correct decision from a security standpoint. However, I do understand that Osmosis is a small team, right? They don't want to have to be working with like a billion different integrations going on at one time. And so I get the point of, hey, we just want to have one place to start. So that's where I'm at. I'm kind of in a middle ground.
More for the team, it's more about the users, right? The team is not worried about integrations per se, but they're kind of worried about the liquidity and users having to basically like go through all the different options they have, despite knowing what everything means, or like taking a wrong step because of that. And I think the best part about this is that even though there's a vote, so like there will be a winner, or like there will be no winner. But even at the end of the day, if let's say some bridge doesn't get selected as the chosen one, they can still have liquidity pools on Osmosis and Cosmos, because it's permissionless, right? Like everything is decentralized. So it is still possible that there's a go-to bridge, but there's enough liquidity on one particular bridge that you can actually say that there is no winner.
This is also kind of off topic, but just speaking from a user experience standpoint, I do think a lot of bridges and dApps need to do a better job of labeling tokens so that people understand what they're purchasing. Because it is very hard to understand if you're on, let's say you're on an Ethereum L2, right? And you buy, let's say you buy ETH on Optimism somehow, right? You're on a DeFi protocol and you're like, oh, I'm going to trade for ETH for some reason. Like, what kind of ETH are you actually getting? It's pretty unclear at the moment, right? As someone who's like a decently experienced user, I can usually figure it out. You go look at the smart contracts, you go look at Etherscan, whatever. But like, if person who just came onto Optimism because they wanted the airdrop and they're trying to airdrop farm for the first time, I do think that labeling bridged tokens has a long way to go before the user experience is smooth.
I mean, so while I was researching for this particular thread, so I came across one post that had all the different types of assets, right? Which is basically you have X token, and then there's synthetic version of this token, and then there are rewards for that synthetic version, but there are also rewards for the synthetic version of the synthetic version. So the post was like basically 30 different assets that were all synthetic versions, rewards, or something or the other. And the caption of the post was, "We're all going to jail."
Yeah, seriously. And then don't forget about the wrapped version of the synthetic token on the next chain, right? Like it's ridiculous.
And don't forget about the rewards you receive for the wrapped version in another wrapped version. Right? So there's basically no use for it because there's no liquidity, and that's the whole point. Like the liquidity keeps getting fragmented with each spin-off or each like wrapped version of everything. So there are problems, and that's why these solutions are important. These topics are important to discuss at least, and basically try and see what works. Right? There's no one solution.
And now I'm kind of talking myself into the canonical chain, right? Because then you don't have to worry about the 30 different versions of a token. But anyways, we have to move on. We don't have all day. All right, so this is the second to last portion of the podcast. Arjun, can you give out a few basic content recommendations from the past 7 days that you came across?
I mean, the first one was a thread written by you, like LI.Fi and its use cases. So I think it makes sense to dive deeper into that because we're talking about different bridges, different wrapped versions. So what do you think about LI.Fi and what are the use cases?
Okay, so last week I threaded about LI.FI's use cases because we just wanted to kind of put out what we've been working on at LI.FI and why we think other protocols should check out our aggregation technology. And so we just kind of highlighted three or four different use cases that we're seeing. So first of all, Treasure DAO, which don't check out that handle in the thread. I tagged the wrong person. But it is an OG NFT marketplace on Arbitrum. And LI.FI has created a widget that allows you click a button and it allows you to purchase Treasure DAO's magic token, which is how you purchase NFTs on Treasure DAO. And you can do this all in one click. So like if I have any token on Ethereum, I can go transfer it to Arbitrum, swap it to Magic, and all that happens in one click. I don't have to think about finding a DEX. I don't have to think about finding a bridge. All I have to do is click buy Magic, and it immediately takes out my token from Ethereum or any of our other supported chains, which is beautiful. The second integration we want to talk about is Perpetual Protocol. We already mentioned it earlier. They integrated our SDK into their platform. Here's what they had to say about us. LI.FI simplifies the process of swapping or moving funds for newcomers to crypto and abstracts away the concepts of bridges and dexes altogether. It is music to my ears. Lastly, we have Planet IX, which I would assume is Roman numerals, but I'm terrible with Roman numerals, so I'm just going to go there. It's an NFT strategy game on Polygon, and it uses LI.FI protocol to allow players to purchase its native IXT token from on any of its 12 chains in one click. It's beautiful. And then last use case is just when Ukraine was accepting donations in crypto, we created a little platform where anyone could donate to Ethereum mainnet from any of the chains that we support in one click, which is delightful. And that is the thread.
I mean, it was a great thread because it showcased like how you can use a bridge aggregator like LI.FI in a project. And that's what we're all about, right? Like we're a B2B solution first. So it's great to see real implementations of our product. And yeah, so the recommendation from my side would be the cross-chain bridges explored. So this is a great overview of the bridging ecosystem, and it pretty much covers everything about bridges, like how bridges work, different types of bridges, and also some details about the different bridge projects. More importantly, it talks about bridge security and the concerns around like recent hacks. So yeah, my takeaway from this blog again was that there are just so many different flavors of bridges out there, and because each bridge has its own strengths and trade-offs, it feels like one bridge can't have it all, and there's a case for aggregation of bridges, right? And the next one is Optimism, a new chapter. This is the blog where there was like hint of an airdrop, or like people started talking about maybe is there an Optimism airdrop soon. So yeah, this one they put a lot of emphasis here on numbers like revenue, funding, transaction volume, wallet addresses, and that's why it was something that always focused on numbers. And then the blog post reads, the Optimism network is now ready to support a true ecosystem. And they follow that up with the Optimism journey is now going towards a new chapter. And they say, our baby has learned to walk. and it's nearly time to run. We're nearing the end of a chapter and the beginning of the next. So one driven by community ownership and governance. So I don't think you can have community ownership and governance without a token, right? Like how else? Yeah, that's why all the rumors started circulating about Optimism token.
And
Of
that's
course,
why,
Coinbase front ran them, but
yeah, Coinbase put the Optimism token on their platform. That's such a web 2.5 move by Coinbase. You keep
yeah.
going.
So
Sorry, I won't distract you.
I mean, so I just found it very, very interesting that there was all this wordplay going on in that one article. Like, it just screamed of like they want to say it, but they can't. Like, but they want the users to know that okay, something is happening behind the scenes, and great marketing, great storytelling in general. The next one is about advantages and misconceptions about rollups, and it's written by chainlinkgod.eth. And it goes back to the discussion about if you should launch a blockchain or deploy a L2 rollup, right? So in recently we've seen like L1 blockchains becoming rollups on different chains. So this again puts emphasis on like what are the advantages and disadvantages of the rollup approach. So very interesting topic for anyone interested in like scaling, like the concept of scaling Ethereum and the route we're taking there. The next one, the technical aspects of bridging to Cardano. So this is a very nerdy blog, right? But so the number of tokens bridged from Milkomeda to Cardano is very big and a random number, right? Like it's not a complete number, like let's say 900 billion or something. It's like it reads very long. And so the blog post is basically about describing why this number was picked. And to explain that, they've gone into detail about how computers work, how Cardano native token minting works, and how they had to build the bridge around all these limitations. So very nerdy, but very interesting blog post that's unique, right? Like you don't see people talking about like how computers work and then go on to talk about, okay, this is why we had to choose that random number and we're not crazy, right?
I have nothing to say here.
That's okay. After reading the caption or the tweet, I was like, it's a very interesting way to get someone hooked onto it, but it's very nerdy, so most people won't click on it. Like, how does bridging to Cardano work? How many people are interested in knowing that?
I'll just skip over the Cardano topic. I don't know. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. So I guess I'll talk about the podcasting section a little bit. I'll start with the first one. You can end the second one. But the chopping block talked about DeFi and cross-chain bridge security last Tuesday. And specifically, they talked about the Ronin hack and how North Korea was involved. So you should definitely check that out. Honestly, if you're into cross-chain bridging, you should check out the last 2 or 3 episodes of the chopping block because Tarun Chitra is really one of the like biggest gigabrains in crypto, and him and Hasib Qureshi just like go deep into cross-chain stuff all the time. So definitely check them out if you have the time.
On purpose tries to kind of take the other side. So it's a very interesting discussion, right? And the next one is about the next podcast recommendation is about how Layer Zero will power a multi-chain world. So this is an episode on the Empire podcast with Brian Pellegrino, who is the CEO of Layer Zero, and it's a great overview of like how Layer Zero works, what the team is focusing on right now, and I think they talk about the cross-chain ecosystem in general as well. So I would definitely recommend checking this out to learn more about the space and basically the rationale behind a team as big as Layer Zero, right? Like what are they focusing on next. So he really provides some great insights into the whole process and what the team is up to right now.
All right. I've not checked that one out yet, but I need to. All right, Arjun, this is the last portion of the cross-chain insider. It is also the spiciest portion of the cross-chain insider. Arjun, what's your like biggest cross-chain hot take for the next week or so?
I could not think of anything other than the Osmosis DAO vote right now, because that sums up so much of what we're building, and I think it will be a great like overview of where we're headed as well, because it's like asking validators to decide which bridge to choose, or even if they want to choose a bridge, like if they want to choose one single bridge. So it's like, and I think there's also that space in between, because people know about these bridges but they don't know about these bridges, right? But they've been told to vote. So there's a lot of great threads and educational content that's being put out by Osmosis community members who are trying to educate people about all these different types of bridges. So there's great focus on security, great focus on like executing plans, and I feel that's a very good way to do it, because otherwise people are just gonna vote for the one that they know about, right? And that's probably not the right way to do it. I think that will still happen on many levels. Like people will just go off of what they learn from Twitter. But I think, yeah, so it's definitely on my mind. Like how do people decide which to choose? I can't choose one, and yeah, like I have my opinions, I have my biases, but I can't choose one bridge provider, right? Like I can't choose what to eat for breakfast. But how can I choose one single bridge provider? It's very hard.
See, I think that's just because we work at LI.F I. We're bridge agnostic. Wow, I cannot talk today. Bridge agnostic. So I like to hear it. On my side, for my hottest take of the week, I'm actually borrowing this from the chopping block, but I'm starting to think that bridged assets should trade at a slight discount to native assets. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I read that somewhere, and yeah, I haven't thought about it properly to again have a good opinion. But it makes sense, right? If there's no liquidity, so it happens in general as well. So if there's less liquidity for any asset, it trades slightly below the market price, so that the seller or the buyer is incentivized to get in on the action. So it makes sense, and it's a model that's adopted in traditional finance as well, or in centralized exchanges as well, because for some reason, like some of the Indian exchanges, they don't have liquidity for USDC, and I have to sell it for like a 5% discount or something, just to get access to my money. So it makes sense. Like yeah.
I'll
Makes
also add in the liquidity aspect of this is certainly something that's on my mind, but also to me, any bridged asset, or really even any staked asset, inherits the security or lack of security of the bridge or the staking protocol. So to me, if you're using a bridge that has been exploited before, and you know that it's been exploited before, how can you really treat that bridged asset as something that has equal value to the native asset? After this thought kind of crept into my mind, it's just fascinated me, right? Like I'm a big Lido finance guy, which is the liquid staking protocol for Ethereum and Terra and Solana, right? And just thinking about, okay, if you stake your Ethereum to ETH 2.0, right, there is this like slight risk, however minute, that the staking mechanism just goes bust, right? Or the Lido validators, just something catastrophically bad goes wrong. And that staked ETH is not equal to one piece of native Ethereum. And it just fascinates me that you don't really see a these staked or bridged assets trading at a discount.
But I think the nuanced kind of thing here is that how do you measure all these different risks? Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, okay, let's say one bridge got hacked and the other bridge doesn't have consensus on Twitter that it's the safest one. So how do you measure these two different risks, right? So it's like, does that reflect on the price? And does the risk and the security model also comes into play? So like you're saying, IBC kind of light client based bridges, they're the most secure, right? So they'll be the closest peg to the actual asset.
Yep.
But if you have like a trusted model that's like on the lower end of the spectrum, that'll be what trading at a 5% discount or something.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, you can't measure it properly. Like there are so many bridges, and to build a framework to come up with a price that's fair, it's very difficult. Or I guess you let the market participants decide, as always. Like, what do you think is the price of this?
And
that's
the market participants now are saying they don't care, right? They want their wrapped ETH, their bridged ETH, their staked ETH, their whatever. They're
maybe
fine.
that probably shows that they're using it for a short term, right?
Yeah.
Like let's say if I have to use a wrapped version of something, I maybe won't hodl it. But if I have to use it for 10 days to get great APY, I would consider it, right? So maybe there's again another metric into the discussion, like the time period of everything. So I guess you let the market decide.
That's my hot take for the week.
So that's a great take. I have to go check out the podcast again.
Yeah. Okay. And that is the first episode of the Cross-Chain Insider. For more info, be sure to subscribe to the Cross-Chain Insider on YouTube here and the Medium newsletter that Arjun posts every Monday. You should also check out Li.Fi. We're building the ultimate bridge and DEX aggregator, which I would call metaverse tooling. But that's just my opinion. You can also check out Li.Fi on Twitter at LI.FI, where you will also find our Discord link. So come hang out with us on Discord. We love memes, we love GIFs, and we love just being degenerates. So if you're degenerate, come join us. And that is the show. Thank you for watching.